So this would be Thursday, May 28th, first period. The training has worked well. For you guys, our last talk. For my other classes, I'll get a chance to at least finish up with them and do a little bit of bonus talk. If you hear the kids talk about any of my other stories, you're welcome to go watch them, because I have stuff like the first fight I got into when I was in junior high and stuff like that. Or then other stories involving some of my friends and poor choices we made. So I get to tell them other stories that you guys won't get to get. But you guys get the bonus of getting to hang out with me for 2 hours tomorrow morning, because we run around and I trick you guys into wearing neckties so when you aggravate me, I can strangle you. Whoops, that was my secret plan. The quick version of my third story that I did not get a chance to get to with you guys. I got through high school, the whole idea of me getting arrested at 14, as much as it sucked, and it did, because yesterday's a tough day for me to go through and tell that story. Not because I don't want to tell you that, but because it still hurts. It's still painful. But it's a pain that I go through because I think me going through that pain of telling that story helps you. At least that's what I hope, and it leads into today. So yesterday was a tough day to get through, then today is tough in a different way. And we'll talk about that here in just a moment too. But that getting arrested at 14 kept me from getting in trouble throughout high school. It helped me make the right choices, because I knew if I got pulled in by the cops for anything that I would be arrested again and bad things would happen. So it helped inspire me to make the right choices. Looking back on it, as much as I hated being arrested at 14 at the time, I don't know if I'd be here in front of you today if I wasn't. Because I didn't make bad choices in high school because of that, and my family has horrible history with addiction, with every member of my family. It's part of my bloodline, and so it's made me paranoid about drugs and alcohol because of that. And if I hadn't been scared of getting arrested, I might have made bad choices in high school, and I might have gone down a different path, and it might have been a path that wouldn't lead me here today. So it's weird how you look back on things, and I look back at this arrest at 14, and the last thing I ever would have said was that it was a good thing for me, but in all honesty, it might have been. It might have been what put me here in front of you guys today. And I say that because you have to realize that when things happen to you in life, even the most devastating, horrible things that you think are the life changers, you don't know the long-term effects of them. And if you had told me when I was 14 that that happened to me because one day I was going to stand in front of a room full of children and try to guide them, I would have laughed at you, because it would not have been a thing that was even important to me at the time. But it's obviously important to me now. So when those events happen to you, give it time to understand why it happened to you. But that got me through high school. My last arrest happened when I was in college, and if you want to hear the full version of it, my fourth period I gave a really good version of it. My seventh period I gave a pretty good version of it too. Essentially, I didn't drink all throughout high school at all. I hung out with kids who did. I hung out with kids who smoked pot because I had friends who made poor choices. Because I had friends in junior high who had horrible home lives, and they started smoking pot when I was in high school, and I was aware of it, but I didn't do it myself. But I refused to give up a friendship with them, even though I didn't go down that same path. But getting to college, my freshman year, I brought my car with me down to IU, which was a big deal because you don't get to bring a car to college at IU very easily. I had to pay a whole bunch of extra money. I had to camp out at 3 in the morning to get a parking pass, and I was one of a few kids that did. And my freshman year, I still didn't drink because I was only 6 months out from my 18th birthday, and I didn't want to get arrested again for fear that it would pop up. And they were throwing a party on my dorm floor. And I was friends with all the guys there, and I told them I don't drink, and they were fine with that. They were really friendly. And they were like, well, we're going to throw a beer blast for another guy on the floor. And I was like, that's fine. I'm not coming to it because I've been arrested. And they're like, yeah, we know. And I was like, but the problem was they needed a car to go get the beer because they had a friend that was 21 that was going to go buy it. And they asked to borrow my car. And I, not being an idiot, said, no, you can't borrow my car, because the guy who wanted to borrow it was a guy that I saw being a little on the crazy side, and I didn't trust him driving my car. Either the fact that he would strip the clutch, or the fact that he would wreck it, or the fact that just him driving around with a bunch of beer in the back seemed like a bad idea if he got caught. So I offered to drive instead because I wanted to be there for my friends. It wasn't peer pressure as much as just I wanted to help out friends, and because I wasn't going to be there for the party, I figured it was the least I could do. And so I drove them around to go get the beer. And then when we got back to the parking lot, walking across the parking lot, cops showed up. They just happened walking through there, because they do that at colleges. They realize if you just walk around parking lots, you'll catch kids doing stupid stuff. And we had parked the car in the parking lot, and they just walked up. And because it was my car, I'm the one that got arrested. And so I got arrested for alcohol possession, even though I didn't drink. And I had to go to alcohol rehab classes when I didn't drink, which is a really weird thing to do, to have to go to classes to teach you that you should not drink when you don't drink. But the law does not care, because I got arrested for having like 200-some cans of beer in the back of my car. It was a lot of beer. It was enough beer that the back of my car actually like tilted down, because they had put so much into the back of it. And then I had to go tell my parents, and that was a tough conversation to have, trying to convince my parents that I got arrested for something I didn't. I did it, but I don't drink. And in my family, which has a history of drug and alcohol, they didn't believe me. And I remember having the conversation with them. I was like, hey, I've gotten arrested again. Once again, a phrase I hope you never have to say. Either part, the getting arrested or the again part. And I told my parents, I'm like, hey, I got arrested again. They're like, what did you do? And I'm like, possession of alcohol. And they're like, well, we can get you help. And I go, I don't drink. And they're like, hon, you have to admit you have a problem before we can help you. And so it took a lot to convince them that I don't drink, I'm just an idiot. And I eventually had to invite my friends over, and they're like, no, he doesn't drink. He is just an idiot. And they're like, really? Our son's just an idiot? And I'm like, yeah, like, oh, thank God. And so it was a nice little bonding moment. And so that was my third time I got arrested. That was the very quick and short version of it. And that was the last time. You can open it. She's probably going to be Corinne coming back in. Welcome. And that was the last time that I was arrested, when I was 18, which is over 20 years ago. So go me. I now haven't been arrested for half my life. And so that's a pretty big step for some people. Then to jump forward, that's what I used to do with my stories. It used to be I would end with the idea of those 3 stories, and it would just sort of wrap up. And then as time went on, I started changing little bits and pieces of my stories when kids would come back to talk to me. And that's what started culminating in today. And today is one of the reasons why I record the classes, because it changes for each class period. And it's also I have notes first day, which I don't have for the other ones, because today is one of the more painful days for me to get through. And it's a painful day for me to get through, not because it's about me, but because it's about you guys, which is where it gets much more painful for me. So I'll apologize now if I show emotion, because I don't believe in emotion. And emotion is just weakness leaving the body, but sometimes we all have our moments of weakness. I've had kids ask me at the end of the year why I don't start the year with these stories. Why don't I open the year with them? They're like, they're so much fun, we enjoy doing them. I'm like, you should start that, because that would be the best way to start. And that's not the way it works. The reason you enjoy these stories is because I've earned your trust. This whole year has been about earning your trust. Because if you think about it, if you had another teacher sit and say, I want to tell you stories about my childhood, there's every chance you'd be, no, old person, no. And I'm sure you can imagine any number of teachers that if they started off the conversation with that, like, we're going to spend the next week of you listening to me just talk about my life, you would be like, gun now, please. So that's the problem. I can't start the year with that, because you don't know me. I've not earned your trust. So this year is about earning your trust. And I earn your trust in a number of different ways. I know I say I hate children. It's one of the things I throw out there a lot. Obviously, I don't. Hopefully, at some point, you picked up on the fact that I don't actually hate kids. If not, then surprise! I don't hate children. I was bullied a lot when I was a kid. One of the things I was a skinny, dorky kid. It happens to skinny, dorky children. You get bullied. And I learned early on being bullied that if you want to stop someone from bullying you, you have to own whatever it is that they're attacking you for. You take away that power from them. And so for me, when kids attacked me, I would take whatever they were attacking me for, and I would make it my own. They attacked me because I had horrible acne, starting in 8th grade and going through high school. It was a pizza face. I mean, it was just, I had just horrible zits and pimples as bad as you can imagine. The pictures up there were not those. I was fine by that point, but were all retouched when I was all through junior high and high school. And I remember that and the fact that they would make fun of me because I read all the time, or the fact that I was a dork, or the fact that I was twiggy and skinny. And when they would attack me, they was gonna, you have a pizza face. I'm like, yeah, I know, it's horrible. I have on medicine for it. Like, you're like a big walking stick. I'm like, yeah, I know, it helps me get over fences. And so whenever they attacked me, I just owned whatever it is. It's the fastest way to disarm a bully. When a bully attacks you, they want a reaction from you. They want you to get upset. They want you to cry. They want you to react. It's what brings the bully happiness. The best way to get rid of a bully is not to punch them, because that's still a reaction. The best way to get rid of a bully is the non-reaction. Is when they attack you, you just go, yeah, I know. Like, you're fat. Yeah, I know. I eat a lot of food. It's delicious. Or, you're way too skinny. Yeah, I know. I keep trying to eat food. It won't stick to me. You're ugly. Yeah, I know, but you're dumb, and eventually I'll get better. And so you just find ways to just let it bounce off of you, and you move on from it. So when I became a teacher, I realized that students bully teachers all the time. And it wasn't something I realized when I was a kid, and it's not something they teach you in college. But you guys do. It's when you tell teachers that you find them boring. When you tell teachers that you don't like them. When you say you don't like their class. This bullying. It hurts every teacher when you say that to them. And I found that out my first year. And it was something that I was not expecting. Because I don't think kids necessarily do it on purpose. You're not doing it to necessarily hurt the teacher. Sometimes you are, because it's a teacher you don't like and you're trying to find that thing. But other times, when you just tell a teacher that their class is boring, no teacher wants to be boring. No teacher has that desire when they come out of college to be that class that kids hate to go to. Every teacher goes into teaching because they want to make a difference. So when you say that their class is boring, it hurts them. They don't always react to it because we're professionals, but it hurts. And so that happened to me my first couple of years when kids would do that. And I remember my first year of teaching, I had a girl named Sarah, who I'll never forget her name, and she was my 7th period. Not a bad kid, and nowadays it wouldn't bother me at all, but my first year I was a horrible teacher. Every first-year teacher is a horrible teacher. And I know you guys give Miss Gray a hard time, but it's not her fault. When you're a first-year teacher, you're awful. You have no experience. My first year, I was horrible. My discipline involved me just asking kids to do that. I'm like, please stop doing that. No. Okay. And they would just keep doing things. They would crawl around my room while I was teaching. And I was like, stop doing that. No. Okay. That's horrible. I look back and I'm like, how did I possibly teach? And I had a girl who would not stop talking during my 7th period. And it got to the point where I didn't know what to do. And so I kicked her out of my room. I'm like, you have to go sit in the hall. I'm like, I cannot handle you anymore. And I kicked her out in the hallway. But then my little teacher heart felt bad. During the class period, they were working on something. So I stepped outside to go talk with her, to go apologize, because as a teacher, I was like, I feel bad, I hurt her so. Now, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to apologize to you, don't think. But at the time, I was like, oh, she's probably going to be crushed now. And so I remember going out, and she didn't hear my door open. And I went out, and she was sitting on that little wooden bench facing where Bainey's room is, and she was doing something. And I walked up, and she didn't see me, and I looked over her shoulder, and it was a picture of me. And she'd written my name on it, and she was in the process of just stabbing it, just over and over again. And it killed me. I remember I was just like, I was just like looking at it. And I realized, I'm like, holy cow, does that make me feel bad? So what I decided to start doing from there, and it was a bit of a turning moment, because I knew, and then she turned and saw me, and the look of mortification on her face, it was astounding, because she did not mean to be mean to me in any way. She was just letting out anger. She was venting. She was mad, and she wanted to be attacked and stuff like that. So it wasn't mad at me. She liked me. She's like, Miss Brovitalk, I like you. And I'm like, you're stabbing a picture of me. She's like, it's okay. I'm like, it's not okay. But we bonded after that. But I realized I had to change sort of how I taught. So what I did is I took on a persona. I took on an acting personality, if you will, when I'm in front of the classroom. And that acting personality is one that hates children, because it goes back to when I was bullied as a kid. I take away your power. Because when you attack a teacher, you tell a teacher that they're boring, boring, or that the fact that they hate children. And for me, if you tell me that with my evil personality, all that does is make it better. You're like, oh, Mr. Brovicast, you're horrible. I know, it's because I eat children's souls. Mr. Brovicast, you're evil. I know, it brings me happiness. And the only way to attack me is to go the opposite of that. And the opposite of that, of course, is, Mr. Brovicast, we like you. Don't spread rumors. And so it allowed me to, by owning your attacks, it made you go the opposite direction. It's simple reverse psychology. By embracing the idea of being evil, anytime you say I'm bad, it goes and builds that side of it. So then you have to go the opposite to try and attack me. It's just a little thing. But it gave my room a personality, which is what I realized too. Which is one of the things that makes my room fun, is the fact that I put on that personality in front of you. The personality you see in front of the room is much as enjoyable as it is. It's not the real me. I'm a shy, quiet dork. It's what I've always been, is a shy, quiet dork. It's what I grew up being. But I realized when I was going through high school and into college that when you're shy and quiet and sit in the back of the room, you don't get the things in the world that you're supposed to get. People don't just give you this stuff when you're a good person. You have to go out and you have to own it. And people give it to those people who are confident, those people who bring attention to themselves. When you do that, you get the things that you want. So I started acting. And by acting, I mean putting on this acting like I'm confident. And in all honesty, that's all confidence is. Confidence is just pretending that you're confident. If you pretend that you're confident enough, other people can't tell. They can't tell the difference between you pretending to be confident and you really being confident. You can't tell the fact that I'm up here and the fact that I don't have this huge ego and this giant swagger and the fact that I think I'm all that in a bag of chips. My God, I do not think I'm all that in a bag of chips. I put my face on everything because it helps build that idea of who I am, but I don't have a huge ego problem. Not that you guys don't help by the time you guys keep saying that the fact that you like me, which just builds to that ego issue. But the fact that, once again, shy, quiet dork on the inside. So my advice to you, one of the things I learned when I was in high school, was to fake it. And it really is as simple as that. You pick the personality that you want to put out there, and you put it out there. When you see kids who seem incredibly confident, who seem to have everything going for them, who seem to have all these levels of confidence, it's not some magic thing. It's a choice. You choose to go out there, and you choose to put yourself out there. The worry becomes, Mr. Brovicast, what if kids make fun of me? They're going to make fun of you. That's part of life. Here's my question to you, though. Who's making fun of you? Are the people making fun of you people that you care about? Is it random kids at school? If it's a random kid at school, why do you care? If it was a random person on the street that was making fun of you, would you care? If it's a random kid at school, why do you give them the power? Why let them have control over your life? It's when your friends give you a hard time, when your friends tell you what you're doing is stupid, then consider it. Then think maybe it's a poor choice. But when it's a random kid and they're giving you a hard time, who cares? That's what I learned. And it's a story that I didn't get a chance to have time to tell you, and it goes back to when I was a kid. And I worked really hard to be popular when I was in junior high. It was the only thing I cared about. I wasn't a good kid in junior high. I wasn't bad. But socially, that's all I wanted to be, was popular. I thought being popular would solve everything. And I ditched friends to be popular, and it's not something I'm proud of. And I look back on it now, and I see the poor choices I made. I thought that if I could be on the wrestling team, if I could be on the football team, if I could hang out with the popular kids, then it would change my life. And I did everything I could in junior high to be popular. And I remember one day I had a friend named John Montgomery. I still remember his name. And he was a dork like I was. And we would hang out in junior high, and we would play like G.I. Joe together in junior high. And I loved it, and it was something I really loved doing. But then I realized that wasn't what the cool kids did. And the cool kids weren't doing that. And if I wanted to be cool, I had to stop doing that. So I remember one day he called to see if I wanted to get together and play. And looking back on it, it's one of my most shameful memories. I had my brother answer the phone instead. And I had my brother tell him I was busy and I couldn't hang out with him. Sorry. Yeah, it still bothers me. What bothered me was... sorry, emotions, they're going to wait a moment. They just pass through. Just shake your head. What bothered me was my brother and how he looked. Sorry. It'll go away. Just give it a second. Puppies, kittens, small animals. All right, we're better now. What bothered me was when my brother looked at me. When I had him tell my friend I couldn't play with him. Because my brother was 2 years younger than me. And he looked confused. I remember just being like, just tell him, it's okay. And him looking like, why? And me not being able to explain to him why. And that haunted me afterwards. About why I would make that choice. But I did. And I wish I could tell you that was the moment where I changed and became better. But it wasn't. I spent the next year still trying to be popular. But that day it continued to haunt me. Obviously still haunts me till today. The day that changed it was I was riding on the bus. And I was the quiet kid on the bus. I remember listening to these two popular girls sitting in the seat in front of me. And I learned early on that if you're, much like Larry in gospel, if you're quiet and you listen, you learn a lot. And I sat on this bus, and I would be quiet, and I would listen to everyone talking around me. So I could learn how the cool kids were, so I could learn how best to emulate them. And I think it was my freshman year, maybe into my 8th grade year, and I was listening to these two girls talk, so I could find out the best way to start a conversation with them, so that I could find a way to hang out with them, because I thought hanging out with them did change everything. And I was listening to them, and I realized I didn't like them. They weren't good people. That I was spending all of my time trying to hang out with people I didn't like. And that was the moment for me. When I realized, I'm just thinking of puppies. You guys give me a second. They're adorable and they're fluffy. And when you think of fluffy puppies, it makes everything better. Especially when you juggle them, because they make little sounds in the air. The laughter helps the emotions go away. All right. So that was the moment when I realized that I was not using my life the way I should. And it was at that moment that it was an eye-opening one for me. I was like, why am I not hanging out with people who like me for who I am, to hang out with people who don't even care about me? And it was an epiphany. And not everyone gets to have an epiphany in their life. And that was one of my few. And I remember that moment thinking that I'm going to change who I am. I'm not going to continue down the same path because it's not the right way to go. And that was the day that I changed how I lived my life. And I decided that I was only going to surround myself with people who liked me for who I was. And not people who I wanted to be with because of who they were. And so I took control of my life. I know I come across and look like a very happy person to you. There's a reason for that. I'm an incredibly happy person. I live my life happily. I have very few regrets. At 39 years old, I've owned my mistakes. My mistakes I put out there for you guys to see. Those horrible things, I've taken control of them. And when you own your mistakes, they don't have power over you anymore. And so that's when I decided that surrounding myself with the right people and moving forward with my life with real friends, that's where happiness was. Happiness wasn't with popular kids that didn't care who I was. And it honestly changed who I was. And it's why I'm the happy person that I am today. It's because it's a choice. I chose to go down a path of happiness. And in all honesty, that's what happiness is. It's a choice. It's the same conversation I have with my daughter, which is tough because she's 10, and apparently there's these things called hormones that happen to girls that cause you to go insane. that start when you're born. And so I deal with her all the time where she gets emotional and she gets upset and she gets crazy. And she's like, Daddy, you're always so happy. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, why isn't everyone else like that? And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, dear. I choose to be happy. I'm like, you can choose to do it too. And so I'm trying to guide my daughter along those same lines to realize that happiness is a choice. You get to control your life. If you're unhappy in your life, figure out why. What is making you unhappy in your life? And change it. Don't accept being unhappy. Don't accept life not being the way you want it to be. It's your life. You have control over it. No one's changing it for you. You have to be able to go out there and own it as best you can. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. There's so many different things I want to talk about in so little time. All right. I used to give different speeches between regular and advanced because I used to think advanced kids lived a different life. But you guys don't live a different life. Not nearly as much as I used to think you do. Because I thought that since you guys all have good grades and the fact that you push yourselves, the fact that I wouldn't have to give you the same speech as I do my regular kids, who I worry about more with how they turn out. But I've learned that's not always true. And the reason I say that is the reason I teach the way I do. Imagine for a moment there's someone that you care about deeply. And you want the best for them. Family member, something like that. And you know they're making a bad choice. And you want to help them not make a bad choice. You'll do everything you can to help that person you care about not make that bad choice, whatever it might be. Maybe it's a younger sister, younger brother, and it's a poor choice that you've made before, and you realize that if they make the same poor choice, then bad things happen to them. Here's the problem. You're the people I care about. It's why I teach. It's because I care about you guys. When I see you make poor choices, that's when it becomes tough for me. Because that's when I see you guys come back to me when you're in high school. And I have my 8th graders who come back and talk to me. And I have my high schoolers who come back to talk to me. And they tell me about the poor choices they've made and the bad things that happen in their life. And I don't want that to happen for you. I don't want sadness and misery in your future. I want to prevent that as much as I can. So my room is built around helping you not go down those dark paths. The reason people make poor choices a lot of times is home life. And it's something we don't talk about enough at school, how important your home life is. And it's something that I realized a lot of you guys don't understand. Because I know I didn't when I was a kid. Every kid thinks every family is like their own family. I thought when I was a kid that every family had alcoholic grandparents and uncles that went to jail. I thought that was just how families were. Until I started talking to friends and finding out that's not the way it goes. So here's the issue. There's kids in our school, and not just our school, but we'll start here, with really screwed up home lives. Really screwed up home lives. To the point where beyond what you read in books is how bad their home lives are. If you don't have that, if your home life is good, and you have 2 parents at home, and you have 2 parents at home that say the word love to you, that's huge. You have to realize that there's kids around you who don't have that. 1, there's kids around you who don't have 2 parents at home. 2, there's kids who don't have an adult who ever says that they love them. I know this. They talk to me. Have you ever thought how painful it would be to go through life and not have an adult say they love you? The reason I say that is that's who you're in class with. And you don't know who that kid is. Because it's not always who you think it is. It's easy to point to the kid you think is screwed up and say, well, obviously it's them. It's not. When I talked about putting confidence out there and building the world you want kids to see, the kids with screwed up home lives learn that early on. And they've learned to not let you see that part of their world. So what I ask of you is to not judge others so quickly. When you have other kids that attack, that bully, that are mean, realize nobody does that naturally. That's not a natural state of being for people. They do that because it's a learned behavior, because there's something missing in their life. And when they do that, it's because they need love. And I know you hear the fact that you fight bullies with love, but it's true. People don't attack because they're happy people. People attack because they're unhappy people. So what I ask of you is not to jump so quickly with other people, because you don't know which kid in the classroom is that kid with the screwed up home life, who doesn't have the adult at home, who tells them that they love them. Heaven forbid, not having an adult at home who says you love them is actually the better stories of the ones that I hear, because it gets so much worse than that. And for those kids, how could school be important? Why would school be important to those people? Making it from one day to the next is what's important for them. And I understand that. And that's part of why I don't judge people. It's why I set my room up where I won't judge a single one of you, because I don't know which one of you has that home life. I used to think I did. I used to think I was a smart enough person that I could see it and that I could predict it and that I could know it. But I'm wrong. Every year I am surprised by which 8th graders come back to talk to me, to share stories and to bond with me, because it's not always the ones that I suspect. Because there's kids who are very good at putting up fronts and not letting me know the darkness that they go through. So what I started doing years ago was offering to kids an ear to listen to them. Because I realized a lot of times that's what people need, is just someone to listen. And it makes a big difference in life. Because there's times when things are going to happen, when you don't feel you can turn to friends, because you're afraid your friends are going to judge you. And you don't feel you can turn to parents, because you're afraid it's going to affect them, or you're afraid that your parents are part of the issue. And you're going to feel like there's no one you can turn to, that there's no outlet for you. So that's what I offer to you today, is to be that outlet. The fact that if you need to talk ever in the future about whatever, and it doesn't always have to be unhappiness. It can be the fact that good things happen too. I'm willing to listen. I posted last night on Instagram, or maybe this morning, about the keyboarding letters, and the fact that I've kept every letter that's been given to me. I've kept every note. I've kept every picture that's ever been given to me by a student for 16 years. Because I don't know why a teacher wouldn't. The fact that when you do that, you're giving someone a small piece of your heart, because you put emotion into it. So I've kept those. So that's why I offer up, if you ever need to talk, to come see me. It can either be after school, before school. You can email me. I have a lot of kids who now use Instagram, and you can direct message me. Sometimes you need to talk face-to-face. Sometimes it's just a matter of you just need to send the message and be heard. I will always hear you. From now until the day you don't... puppies. Kittens. Till the day you don't need me. And that day will come. There will be a day when you move on. And the good thing is, for some of you, it's now. And these words don't have power for you. And that's okay if they don't have power for you. It's fine. For others of you, the words do. And that's why I started talking at the end of the year, is because I never know which kids the words have power for and which kids don't. But part of the issue is, for some of you, they don't have power yet because you've not gotten to that point. I mentioned that life is going to change for you between 7th and 8th grade. 8th grade's different than 7th grade. So much different. And when you get to high school is so much different than 8th grade was, that you are going to see and experience so much in the next 2 years. It'll be more social changes in 2 years than in the previous 13 of your life. That there's every chance these events have just not happened for you yet. When they do, my door's still open. Even if that event does not happen for 3-4 years from now. I have kids who contact me out of the blue, and that's fine. I don't forget kids. It's just not the way I'm built. I have kids who contact me as a senior. They're like, I've not had you for 6 years. I'm not sure if you remember me, but I do every time. So what I leave for you is that my door's open. Use me if you want, and emotions are persistent. That's it. Have fun. Take